After my wife gave birth, I painted our fence a soft blue, her favorite color. A day later, the neighbor knocked and said, "I'm filing a complaint. That color's depressing. This isn't a baby shower." I laughed. Until I got an HOA letter demanding it be repainted, with photos taken from her second-floor window. I repainted it. The next day, my wife found a blue onesie on our porch, ripped in half. The tag still attached. Then I found the receipt in our trash bin. Her credit card. Her name. And a line scribbled across the top. "They don't deserve joy." We live in a small neighborhood outside of Boise, Idaho. Pretty quiet. Families with dogs. Retired couples. The kind of place where people keep their lawns cut and wave even if they don't know you. I thought we had picked the perfect spot to raise a family. I was wrong. My wife Natalie and I bought the house 3 years ago. We waited a long time to have kids. She had 2 miscarriages before we had our son. So when he was born, alive, healthy, ours, it felt like a miracle. Natalie had a rough delivery. I sat beside her for almost a week in the hospital. She lost a lot of blood. Her hands were cold. There were moments I really thought I was going to leave that hospital a single dad. But she pulled through. We got home. She was healing. Still sore, still tired, but smiling when she held our son. I wanted to do something nice for her. Something that wouldn't cost a fortune, but would show her I remembered what she loved. Her favorite color was always this soft baby blue. I don't know how to describe it exactly. It's not bright, not dull either. Like the color of hydrangeas or old baby blankets. I remember once, years ago, she saw a mug in that exact shade and bought it even though it had a chipped handle. She just loved that color. So I painted the fence. I spent all day Saturday out there with a roller and a few brushes. 2 coats, every plank. It was a long fence, but the sun was out, and I just kept going. When I finished, it looked clean, peaceful. It gave the yard this calm vibe. I stood back with a cold drink in hand and thought, yeah, this feels right. Like home. Natalie came out and smiled. She got teary. She said it made her feel like things were going to be okay. The next morning, I was holding the baby when someone knocked at the door. It was Sandra. She lives next door in one of those 2-story houses with a tiny front porch and flower pots that look like nobody waters them. Early 60s, maybe late 50s. Always watching out her window. Always pretending to be helpful, but with that tight little smile that never reaches her eyes. She didn't say hi. She just looked over my shoulder at the fence, then back at me. "I'm filing a complaint," she said. I thought I misheard. "Sorry? That color," she said, pointing with her chin. "It's depressing. This isn't a baby shower." I laughed. Because who the hell says something like that? She didn't laugh back. She stared at me like I'd left garbage in her yard. Then she turned and walked away. I closed the door and tried to shake it off. Thought maybe she was just having a bad morning. 3 days later, I got a letter from the HOA. They said I had 10 days to repaint the fence. If I didn't, they'd fine me $250. Attached to the letter were 3 printed photos, taken from the second story. All from angles that only made sense if you were standing in a particular upstairs room. Sandra's room. 3 color swatches were stapled to the back, beige, gray, or white. I showed the letter to Natalie. She didn't say much. She just sat there holding our son, looking tired and empty. She called it depressing, I said. Like our kid was an eyesore. Natalie didn't answer. But later that night, I heard her crying in the bathroom. She thought I didn't hear. She turned on the faucet and shut the door, but I know her. I repainted the fence the next day. White. Plain. Cold. The yard looked like a goddamn medical office. Then the onesie showed up. It was early. I had taken the baby so Natalie could get some sleep. When she woke up and opened the front door to check the mail, it was sitting there. Right on the doormat. A soft blue baby onesie. Torn clean down the front. The tag was still on it. Like it was brand new. She brought it inside, her hands shaking. I was making coffee and nearly dropped the pot when I saw her face. "Did you order this?" she asked. "No," I said. She flipped it over and showed me the tear. It felt like a threat. Or a joke. But not a funny one. I went outside and checked the trash bin. I don't know what made me do it, just a feeling. I opened the lid and right on top of the garbage was a receipt. Folded, like it had been shoved in there quickly. It was from a boutique baby store downtown. Dated 2 days earlier. Paid with a Visa card. Name on the receipt, Sandra C. Lambert. Written in thick black marker across the top was a message. "They don't deserve joy. I stood there staring at it, gripping the edge of the bin so hard my knuckles turned white. She bought it. She tore it. She put it on our porch. She wanted us to see it. She wanted Natalie to see it. This wasn't just a grumpy neighbor. This was someone who wanted to hurt us. And that's when I decided to ruin her life. I didn't say anything to Natalie at first. She was still healing. Still fragile. I couldn't pile more weight on her. But I kept the receipt. I folded it and slid it into the back of one of my tool drawers in the garage. I looked at it every night for a week. That marker ink, those 4 words, "They don't deserve joy," burned into my brain. I started watching Sandra. Not obviously. Just paying attention. Every time her blinds shifted, every time her sprinkler schedule changed, I noticed. She kept to a routine. Watered her roses every other day. Took her little dog, Muffin, out to poop in the yard at exactly 7:15 every morning. Drove a white Lexus, always parked with the rear tires right on the sidewalk line like it was measured. Perfect. Predictable. I didn't know what I was going to do yet. I just knew I wasn't going to let it go. Then she made it worse. One morning, Natalie took the baby out for a walk. Just around the block. It was the first time she'd been outside alone since the hospital. When she got back, she was shaking. Pale again. Her mouth tight. "She called me a mistake," Natalie whispered. I froze. She was sitting on her porch. She waited until I was right in front of her driveway, and she said, "Some people just weren't meant to be mothers." I could barely hold on to the stroller. I was so angry I couldn't breathe. I didn't go over there. Not yet. That would be giving her what she wanted. Instead, I started digging. I found her Facebook. It was locked down tight, but not tight enough. Sandra had a niece who tagged her in some family photos a few months ago. That led me to a family reunion page. And on that page, I found something interesting. Sandra had a daughter. Her name was Rebecca. But she wasn't around anymore. Comments from 2018. "Thinking of you, sweet Becca." Photos of a candlelight vigil. A name etched into a bench in some park. No details. But enough to tell me Sandra was no stranger to grief. That she knew exactly how to press the nerve. Then I saw a comment from someone else in the thread. "Hard to believe it's been 5 years. Especially after how she treated you in court." That made me dig harder. And I found it. Court records not sealed. Sandra had been involved in a custody dispute with her own daughter. It went bad. Real bad. Sandra had tried to declare her daughter unfit to raise her own child. But it backfired. The daughter won full custody, and Sandra was cut out. No visitation. No contact. Nothing. That little girl would be about 10 now. I sat in my garage staring at the printout of the case for 2 hours. Now I understood. She wasn't just being cruel. She was projecting. She saw us with our baby and she hated it. It reminded her of what she lost. What she ruined. That receipt, that onesie, it wasn't random. It was a message from someone who couldn't stand that we still had what she lost. So I decided to pull every thread she had left. I started with the simplest thing. Trash. Every Monday night, Sandra rolled her bin out to the curb. Same time, same position. I waited until after midnight. Then I went through it. Most of it was boring: junk mail, used tissues, empty dog food tins. But then I hit something personal. A half-burned letter, torn in 4, shoved under some soggy newspapers. I took it home, dried it out with a hairdryer, and pieced it back together. It was from her granddaughter. Or at least, it looked like it had been. The writing was shaky, clearly a kid's. Colored in purple crayon. It said, "Hi Grandma Sandra, I hope you're nice now. Mommy says maybe one day I can meet you if you don't yell or call people bad names. I like blue. It's my favorite. Bye." Dated just a few months back. So she did still hear from the little girl. Somehow. Somewhere, a bridge hadn't fully burned. That was the soft spot. And I knew how to press it. I waited 3 weeks. I let things cool down. I repainted the fence again. White, like they asked? Smiled when I saw Sandra in the driveway. She didn't smile back. Of course she didn't. She thought she won. But I was just getting started. I called in a favor from a friend of mine who works in web design. We mocked up a fake parenting blog, complete with stock photos, soft colors, and a fake name, Rebecca L., with a blog post titled, "What I Learned About My Mother the Day I Chose My Daughter." It read like a confession. Like someone trying to process their pain. We made sure it couldn't be traced. VPNs, dummy accounts, everything. Then we paid for it to be promoted. Not heavily. Just enough so that when you Googled Sandra Lambert Boise. The blog post was the third result. The day it went live, Sandra stopped watering her roses. 2 days later, a moving truck showed up at the neighbor across the street's house, and Sandra went over there screaming about nasty gossip being spread online. I pretended not to hear. But that was just phase 1. Phase 2 was the dog. Muffin was her world. A small fluffy thing that yapped at squirrels and hated everyone but her. I never touched the dog, I'm not that kind of person. But I did start feeding the raccoons. We lived near the edge of a wooded area. Every night I put out scraps. Chicken bones, apple cores, anything greasy. I led a little trail straight to her backyard over the course of a week. She woke up one morning to find her garden dug to hell and her sprinkler system chewed to pieces. 3 days later, Muffin got sprayed by a skunk. I heard her yelling from inside my garage. No, Muffin, get away, oh my god. She posted on the HOA page about a wild animal invasion. I replied politely. That's what happens when the natural balance gets disturbed. She knew it was me. But she couldn't prove it. Then came phase 3. I paid someone on TaskRabbit $50 to walk by her house and tape a note to her front door at 3 a.m. The note just said, "We deserve joy. You don't." The next day, she called the police. Said someone was stalking her. They came to my door. I acted shocked. Offered to check our Ring camera. Showed them 2 hours of peaceful footage. Spoiler, I turned off the camera that night. They left. No evidence, no report. Just a nervous old woman standing alone on her porch. Her porch light stayed on for a week after that. She looked out her window constantly. I'd wave. She wouldn't wave back anymore. Natalie still didn't know everything. I told her about the blog. I told her about the skunk. I didn't tell her about the note. She just said, "I hope she rots inside her own head." Then the final twist came. And I wasn't ready for it. The final twist came on a cold Monday morning. I was bringing in the trash cans when I noticed something new on Sandra's porch. A for sale sign. Not one of those, by owner signs. This was professional. With a flyer box and everything. She hadn't mentioned a word to anyone on the HOA page. I grabbed a flyer. Her place was listed cheap. Way under market. Like she wanted out fast. I knew then, she was running. That should have been the end of it. But I didn't stop. And that was my mistake. See, I'd gotten too deep. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was obsessed. I wanted her punished. I wanted her to feel what she made Natalie feel. And deep down, I wanted her to know I was the one who did it. So I made one last move. I took that receipt, the one from the onesie, and I mailed it. Not to the HOA. Not to the police. To her daughter. I found her address through some property lookup site. She lived in Meridian, about 30 minutes away. I mailed the receipt in a plain envelope. No note. No explanation. Just the proof of what Sandra had done. A week passed. Then 2. And one afternoon, as I was mowing the lawn, a silver SUV pulled into Sandra's driveway. A woman in her late 30s stepped out. Sharp face. Hair pulled back tight. Behind her, a little girl climbed out holding a doll. It was her. Her daughter. And her granddaughter. Sandra opened the door and froze. She didn't step out. Just stood there in the frame like a ghost. I killed the mower and listened. I couldn't hear the words. Just tones. First cold. Then angry. The granddaughter stayed by the car, sitting on the curb with the doll in her lap. 20 minutes later, the SUV pulled away. Sandra stayed outside after they left. Just stood there on the porch, arms crossed, staring at nothing. 2 days later, the sign came down. But she didn't come outside anymore. Not to water. Not to scream at people. Not even to pick up her mail. I didn't see her once for almost a month. Then one morning, I looked out the window and saw a moving truck. She was gone by noon. No goodbye. No police. No drama. Just silence. I told Natalie everything after that. All of it. The blog. The dog. The note. Even the mail to her daughter. She didn't say anything right away. She just held our son. Then she looked at me and said, "I wish you hadn't gone that far." I thought she'd be proud. I thought she'd understand. But she looked tired. Worn. "She's gone," I said. "She'll never hurt us again." Natalie nodded. But not in a good way. Just quiet. And that's when I realized something I didn't want to admit. I'd become the thing I hated. I didn't just protect my family. I hurt someone. Deliberately. Strategically. I didn't just push back. I pushed too far. And even though I'd won, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like ash. I go out sometimes and sit on the porch with my son. He's older now. He smiles a lot. He doesn't know any of this. And I pray he never grows up to do what I did. Because I don't think revenge gives peace. It just teaches you how to hurt better than the person who hurt you. And I learned fast. Too fast.